Let's talk about Homer and Lisa episodes for a second. I think there's a legitimate case for Homer and Lisa being the best character duo in the entire series. Yeah, Homer and Marge have an amazingly deep marriage, and Bart and Lisa are the dynamic duo for kid adventures. Homer and Bart have certainly had their share of wacky shenanigans. But Homer and Lisa are such perfect character foils, their diverging personalities and interests bringing the best out of each other. When they fight, they have huge fights. When they're bonding, they're the most adorable thing ever. Homer and Lisa, A+ character duo. But then we have Marge and Bart, two other Simpson family members who have such dramatically different personalities and temperaments. And yet, Bart and Marge is much less of a thing on The Simpsons. Heck, even their names together don't sound that good. Marge and Bart, Bart and Marge. Too many R's there, methinks. So what is the deal with the Marge and Bart relationship on the show? Is this something The Simpsons has explored in detail in the series? What does Marge bring out in Bart's character that no one else can? And what does Bart teach us about Marge? Today, let's look at the story about a mom and her special little guy. First off, let's go over the history of Marge and Bart episodes. There's no use talking about this if there aren't really any mother-son stories on The Simpsons. How many times did the writers explore this relationship? I had once called Marge and Bart episodes a rare unicorn, but there are actually more of them than you would think. The main reasons why they seem unexplored is because 1. Homer and Lisa stories are way more common, and 2. The timing of these Marge and Bart spotlights. Homer and Lisa were developed fairly early on in the series' history. We all remember their huge blow-up in Lisa's Substitute in Season 2, and how they gave us the double whammy of Lisa's Pony and Lisa the Greek in Season 3. Then afterward, Homer and Lisa became this go-to dynamic, kicking off episodes, working closely together, or driving subplots. There weren't a ton of straight-up spotlight episodes, but they were established early on enough that Simpsons fans understand their dynamic like the backs of their hands. Whereas Marge and Bart didn't get a full-on spotlight until Season 7's Marge Be Not Proud, and then you have to wait until Bart the Mother in Season 10 for their follow-up. Now, to be fair, these two had significant moments together prior to this. She solves Bart's problem in the Homer-defined B-plot, they go clothes shopping together in Lisa the Greek, or there's school-related stuff, like Marge going to his parent-teacher conference, homeschooling him, or serving as a substitute teacher. Even still, while Marge and Bart were paired up in subplots, there wasn't a significant examination of the relationship, like Homer and Lisa would get, until those episodes a bit later. After that point, we have to jump all the way to Season 17's Marge's son poisoning for the next one. The Scully and early Gene seasons would occasionally have Marge and Bart play important roles in each other's storylines or get paired in B-plots. There's a case that Brother's Little Helper is, at its core, a Marge and Bart story. But we gotta get to the second half of Simpsons history before these spotlight episodes get cranked out regularly. Then we get one almost every other season. Seasons 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 2 in Season 29, then 1 in 30, 32, and then recently in Season 33. This is also not including their dedicated B-plots, like Bart getting into Battle Ball, Marge taking him trick-or-treating, or building him a new treehouse. Obviously, in terms of sheer numbers, the Homer-Lisa duo has been featured in more stories, but it's not like Marge and Bart is an alien concept for the show. The problem is that a lot of their stuff came late, and that it's not top of mind for most Simpsons fans, including myself. Marge and Bart are a one-hit wonder for many. That being said, that one-hit wonder is really damn good in my opinion, so I'm not surprised the writers kept barking up that tree. There is clearly something special about their relationship. The main question now is, how on earth can The Simpsons make Marge and Bart actually relate to each other? One of the bigger challenges of Marge and Bart stories is simply the fact that Bart rarely wants to hang out with his mom. They don't have a ton in common, and unlike Lisa with Homer, Bart rarely expresses the need to spend quality time with his mom. And the show very rarely pursues this angle proactively. With Homer and Lisa, it's relatively easy to construct a story about Homer figuring out how to be Lisa's dad. The onus is on Homer as a parent to do things with his kids. I'm sure Marge would love to hang out with her son more often, but it can be like pulling teeth making it happen. Let's consider Season 18's Marge Gamer as an example. On a whim, Marge starts playing this MMO, and soon discovers Bart is this intimidating dark knight that terrorizes the whole kingdom. She immediately embarrasses Bart in front of the other players, and revamps his castle with the Hello Kitty skin. Bart, in his rage, accidentally kills Marge's character. This is a fun story concept in that Marge is unexpectedly meeting Bart on his own turf. They actually have something in common, but Bart is resentful of Marge for invading his space, and Marge is resentful about, well, being dead now. In the end, Bart feels bad and revives Marge's character at the cost of his own health. He doesn't really care that much when everyone else brutally murders him. Bart is so checked out by now, he's like, yeah, whatever, to Marge declaring she'll avenge him. On paper, you'd think this could have been a story about Marge and Bart finding common ground, but their inability to set boundaries ruins the whole thing. For Marge to truly connect with Bart on his level, she would have to get in touch with her wild side. In Season 33's Marge the Meanie, Bart discovers that Marge was somewhat of a prankster in middle school, and he is so excited about it. Look at him jumping around yelling, "We're the same, we're the same!" Look at these two doing pranks around Springfield, chuckling quietly to each other. It's ridiculously cute. It has an interesting inner conflict within Marge, who absolutely hates doing these pranks, but doesn't want to upset Bart. Bart tearfully declares that Marge rejecting pranking would feel like she's rejecting Bart. The episode unfortunately kind of fizzles out in the end, but damn, what a fascinating concept between them. I want more of this. I want Marge to struggle with how to personally relate to her son. Homer doesn't have to monopolize that story format, you know? We do have one instance of Bart meeting Marge on her level, which is by far their most unusual adventure together. It's time to talk about Season 17's Marge's Sun Poisoning. In that one, Marge buys a tandem bike, but no one will ride it with her. Bart feels bad and agrees to go on bike rides. They find a tea house and have a lovely time together. Bart mostly likes the cakes. After the tea house closes, Bart suggests they make their own tea house in his tree house. Then the bullies make fun of him, calling him a mama's boy, and Bart lashes out at Marge. He immediately makes up with her, agreeing to sing with her at a karaoke show. But in the end, Marge doesn't want Bart to turn out like Principal Skinner, declaring that Bart should be the wild heckraiser that he truly is. This episode touches on some of these societal challenges with Marge-Bart stories. Like with Homer and Lisa, they can lean on that daddy's girl concept with father-daughter relationships that no one blinks an eye at. Furthermore, a daughter bonding with her mother or a son with his father are both very common character dynamics in media. But there is this mama's boy stigma that can be associated with mothers and sons, these Norman Bates-esque jokes that pop up. Just look at Principal Skinner and Agnes. The Simpsons has been mocking a super close mother-son relationship for decades. Several of these episodes emphasize how embarrassed Bart feels by Marge, being picked on by his friends and the schoolyard bullies. We all know Bart is incredibly image conscious, so as a result, The Simpsons rarely subverts the traditional mother-son stereotypes. Contrast this, for example, with Linda and Gene from Bob's Burgers, who are very close, much closer than Bob and Gene. That's an example of mother-son character temperaments lining up more easily, a son character that doesn't care what people think. When it comes down to it, Marge and Bart just have dramatically different personal philosophies and character roles. You make Marge into a prankster, it's not Marge anymore. You make Bart polite and goody-goody, it's not Bart. The writers haven't been that interested in finding whatever that middle ground would be. Maybe looking at it this way is completely the wrong tack. Maybe they can't be like Homer and Lisa. Marge is a very different kind of parent than Homer. She will do anything for her kids, will do everything in her power to help them turn out right. And in the case of Bart, she very often has to. Okay, so we've established how Bart needs a space to do his own thing. But that doesn't mean that Bart doesn't need his mom's help. Marge most certainly doesn't approve of everything Bart does, but she loves her son and will do whatever it takes to help him. Some might call Marge a more passive character than Bart, but I would characterize her as being defensive. Marge serves as the protector and comforter that Bart so desperately needs. She's either defending him from outside influences or giving him useful advice. She's the one going to Luann Van Houten, begging her to let Milhouse continue being Bart's friend. She's angrily telling Sideshow Bob to stay away from her son. She's pushing back against the jail time and Australia's booting, insisting she will discipline Bart herself. When Bart gets tripped in a hockey game, Marge immediately calls for blood. Notably, in Bart's girlfriend, Marge is literally the only person in town who believes Bart didn't steal the money. She knows her son. In the later season, she defends Bart's honor against this group of moms when they say he's a bad influence, or she's getting all up in Frink's face about this test, insisting there is no way Bart is worthless. We've even seen Marge save Bart's life on a few occasions, like in Trilogy of Error and 24 Minutes. Action Marge is the best Marge. One of my favorite Marge applications is her plot-shaming ability, when the story is getting out of hand. You know that infamous episode, The Boy's a Bummer? It's Marge who storms outside and calls out the whole town for being a bunch of assholes. When Lisa's restraining order against Bart goes too far, it's Marge who tries to stop the madness. She has a double intervention in that Homer strangling episode. Thank God for Marge, these episodes would be way more miserable without her. In addition to protecting Bart from the writers, Marge is always there to comfort him directly or give him helpful advice. When Bart is being bullied at school, hit by a car, stuck in a well, or murdered by his drugged-out sister, Marge is right there for him. When Bart sells a soul, Marge immediately notices there is something bothering him. And it's not swim test anxiety. When Milhouse moves away, Marge suggests Bart hangs out with Lisa and wash the car. That Marge is so dang thoughtful. It's like giving advice is her job. Her job. Giving advice is her job. The Marge-Bart supportive relationship is definitely one-sided, since Marge is the parent that has to support and defend her kid. But, as discussed earlier, we have seen Bart reach out and help his mom when she's feeling low. He and Lisa are totally ready to help out with pretzels and real estate. And Bart is clearly grateful for all the things Marge has done for him. He quickly figures out that Marge talked to Luann and hugs her. Heck, even in the very first Simpsons episode, Bart wants to get the mother tattoo because he thinks she'd be impressed. Yeah, Bart was totally ungrateful for that awesome treehouse she built him, but this is definitely the exception rather than the rule. Like, how often is Bart actively mean to his mom? Think about it. He talks back to her, sure, but he torments pretty much everybody but her. It's clear that Bart loves Marge very much. I mean, next to Homer, it makes sense why Bart would appreciate everything Marge does for him. Homer is always going to send things off in a more cuckoo bananas direction, which, to be fair, is what Bart's story sometimes needs. But Marge actually knows what she's doing. If Bart wants to save a cow, then Marge is going to figure out a way to save that cow. Bart doesn't really want to hang out with Marge and feels embarrassed sometimes by her, but man does he need her. She is the single most stabilizing force in his life. And unfortunately for Bart, sometimes that means stopping him in his tracks. One of the quote-unquote problems with Marge, in the context of Bart stories, is that her basic role is to prevent Bart from doing his. Bart's the chaotic prankster, Marge is the moralistic straight man. Like, when you're doing a carefree Bart romp, do you really want Marge getting on his case the whole time? Especially on The Simpsons, who wants to subvert the typical sitcom-y parent-child lesson learning? I think Marge is an incredibly important character to Bart because she serves as his conscience, providing that inner conflict that Bart stories need. This is a role that Lisa can do too, but I think his mom is far more influential. I mean, think about how Lemon of Troy started. This town is a part of us all, a part of us all, a part of us all. Many of their Spotlight episodes feature Bart feeling guilty or trying to atone for something that he did. Like, let's look at season 26's Peeping Mom as an example. In this one, Bart is suspected of stealing a bulldozer and going joyriding, but there is no proof. Bart looks Marge in the eye and says he didn't do it. Marge, understandably concerned, takes the nuclear option and starts following Bart everywhere he goes. According to Marge, following an adult is creepy, following your kid is parenting. Eventually, Marge relents on her extreme helicopter parenting. In actuality, Bart does have a big bulldozer prank planned, but just can't go through with it in the end. He changes it at the last second to something Springfield would appreciate more. He's arrested, and Marge still kinda wants to strangle him, but it's clear that Marge did get through to her son. Like most kids, Bart is extremely sensitive to changes in his parents' attitudes toward him. Marge loves Bart unconditionally, but there is often a breaking point where she pivots to a harder line stance. We saw in Marge Be Not Proud how she stops treating him like a child, making Bart feel like the black sheep and wanting to prove something. In Bart the Mother, Marge is so upset she exasperatedly tells him to just do what he wants. It's clear Marge's disappointment in him fuels Bart's desire to protect these eggs. The symbolism is not subtle. Bart cares deeply about what Marge thinks of him. I mean, say what you want about all the bad stuff Bart does and how little regard he has for Lisa and Homer, but Bart never, ever wants to disappoint his mom. When Bart starts faking his performances after Marge got him piano lessons, he only fesses up because he feels bad for deceiving her. In season 29, when Bart is sent to therapy to stop his constant pranking, Bart gives up his thumbtack prank when Marge walks in. At the climax, he gets second thoughts about his water balloon prank and tells people to run. It doesn't work, but it's evident that Marge made Bart reconsider. According to Marge, motherhood sucks. In season 30, Marge gets Bart healing crystals out of desperation, and his grades appear to be improving. But in reality, Bart is cheating and is letting Marge think it's the crystals. Lisa confronts Bart, telling him, "You don't realize how bad this is, do you? You've betrayed the one person who still believes in you." Lisa understandably feels cynical about her brother, and Homer is, Homer. So Bart needs Marge to be his rock. When someone believes in you that much, it's going to affect the choices you make. Marge serves as a vital balancing tool in Bart's characterization. On the parenting side of things, Bart represents an article of faith for Marge. I've always thought of Marge as a very faith-driven character, and I mean that not strictly in the religious sense, but that Marge puts her faith in the goodness of other people. If that weren't true, she wouldn't have forgiven Homer so many times. We've seen Marge get on Bart's case so often and defend him from others, and I think it comes down to the fact that Marge steadfastly believes in Bart's goodness. Marge is not naive about the things he does. Her discussion with Luann makes that clear. Marge is not above tracking his cell phone and looking through his room for drugs. But Marge will never give up on Bart, will never stop trying to guide him in the right direction, even if it ends up burning her in the end. I think this season 29 quote sums it up well, when they're suspicious of his newfound interest in chemistry. If our faces get melted off today, I want the last thing Bart sees to be us believing in him. In this case, Marge was right about the demonstration, but was wrong about the follow-up. Oh Marge, you always try your best. You notice how, in many of these examples, the Simpsons are having their cake and eating it. That we get the warm and fuzzy character relationship moment or lesson, but we also get some kind of mayhem or destruction. It perfectly demonstrates the dichotomy of Bart Simpson as a character. I was once on a podcast where they asked me who my favorite character was on The Simpsons, and I actually answered Bart because of that push and pull within him. But the more I think about it, I realize that the things I love about Bart are due to Marge's influence, that she gives America's Bad Boy some actual depth. I think there's something to be said that Marge is the only character on the show that Bart consistently takes seriously. Homer's a joke, Lisa's his dorky sister, Maggie's a baby. But he's had enough run-ins with Marge to never underestimate her. And Marge, even more than Homer and Lisa, truly gets Bart and knows what he's capable of. She understands his wants and needs better than anyone. I totally get why Toonerific Tariq said Marge is his favorite, because she has such an incredible amount of strength within her as a character. If Bart does end up becoming Chief Justice someday, it's going to be because of Marge. Sorry, Homer. You did a good job with this one, though. Rewatching their episodes again, I do understand why the Marge and Bart duo aren't as prolific as Homer and Lisa. Bart's not an especially warm and fuzzy character, and can be pigeonholed into these prank monkey roles. That's why so many of their episodes fall into the same morality plot formula. I do find myself disappointed that the writers haven't tried to bring Marge and Bart together more often, tried to find that common ground between them. Break down some of those walls that Bart puts up. That season 33 episode is definitely onto something. Marge Be Not Proud demonstrates what Marge brings out in her son, providing that glimpse at the thoughtful and introspective side of his personality. And Bart definitely shows off Marge's resolute strength as a character, her unwavering drive to never quit. Marge is basically a badass. These are two characters that make each other so much better, and it's a shame that they're not more of a thing. Say what you want about that season 12 episode, Tennis the Menace, but it definitely got one thing right. These two make a great team. Marge and Bart, A+ character duo.